Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. Happy Friday, everybody. I hope your day and your week are going very well so far. Got a new day and a new week, which of course means a new college football picks video to go ahead and share with you guys. We got conference championships this week. I got some pretty exciting picks to go ahead and share with you guys. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. With a new day and a new week comes those new opportunities to go ahead and make some money. Got a little bit of a smaller slate this week. Of course, we're on to a conference championship week, so we don't have the full regular season slate. The college football regular season has officially concluded, so a lot of teams, we won't see them again until next year. A lot of teams, we won't see them again until bowl season / college football playoff season, but we do have some really exciting conference championship games that have a lot of impact on the upcoming college football playoffs. So some pretty exciting spots to go ahead and take. I have 6 picks to go and share with you guys for this conference championship slate. But first, before we dive into this week's picks, a quick little recap of how we did last week. And guys, we finished off the college football regular season incredibly strong with an 11-5 performance. The last few weeks, we've been on a really solid run here with our picks. 11-5 last week. We absolutely crushed it last week. The only couple big spots we missed, Ohio State, which was obviously a shocking loss. Kind of honestly, even though I lost that bet, there was a bit of me like, you know what? Good. If you can't cover that line, if you're going to play like that, you deserve to lose that game. Ohio State. We were off on a couple spots, but overall, we had a pretty solid performance. We're now 76, 77, and 3 on the year. We had 2 really bad weeks early in the season that tanked our record, but I told you guys, I've been telling you guys every week, we're going to be over 500. We're going to get there, and now we're just 1 game below 500 with the playoffs and the bowl season and all that stuff still to go. So we're riding high. We got a little bit of a hot streak going on going into conference championship week. I have 6 picks, smaller than slate than usual, but some really solid value on these picks. Let's not waste any more time, guys. Let's dive right into this week's picks. All right, guys, jumping right into the outlier screen here, guys. We have 2 Friday night picks to go ahead and cover. First, before I dive into the Saturday conference championship games, first up, we have UNLV at Boise State for the Mountain West championship game. 8 p.m. tip-off tonight. And for my first pick in this week's slate, I'm going with UNLV plus 4.5 on the spread. We're getting this from -110 BetMGM, -115 on FanDuel, also available on Caesars and Bet365. And look, some might say betting against Boise State might not be a smart play, especially at Boise State in the Blue Turf Stadium. But I'm telling you, I like UNLV a lot in this spot, plus 4.5. Just for starters, from a statistical standpoint, UNLV has cashed this line in 92% of their games this season. Overall, they're a 55% hit rate against the spread. Only one time this year did they fail to cash the plus 4.5 line, and I'll be honest, it was against Boise State back on October 25th. They lost by 5 points in that game. So it was really close. They just barely missed the marker there. UNLV did throw an interception late in the game that kind of gave Boise State both the win and the cover. But that game was really close. I think UNLV, having that first game under their belt, they kept it close the first time. I think they'll go ahead and keep it close here again a second time. Overall, I just think Boise State's defense is really going to be their downfall this year. As great as their offense has been, as great as the Ashton Jeanty stuff has been with their running game, just their defense just isn't good enough. I think UNLV's offense could take advantage of some of the weaknesses of this Boise State team. UNLV has been dominant on the ground. Just as good of a team as Boise State has been running the football, so hasn't UNLV, I should say. They are 4th in rushing, 254 rushing yards per game. Boise State has a pretty decent run defense, actually 17th in the nation, but I think they take advantage there. And although UNLV, their passing numbers aren't great, Boise State's passing defense is so bad, they might be able to go ahead and throw all over them. There's a top 10 scoring team in college football against a team that's ranked tied for 50th in the nation, giving up 23.2 points per game. And on the flip side, we know about Boise State's rushing tech and whatnot. And I'm not saying UNLV has a great defense by any measure, but I think UNLV, a top 10 run defense, their strength is attacking those outside zone runs, which is where Ashton Jeanty gets a lot of his stuff done. I think UNLV, I mean, you can't stop them, but I think they should be able to slow Boise State's rushing attack down enough where Boise State could maybe struggle to score a lot of points here. Again, I'm not saying UNLV needs to win this game, but to keep it within this number. I think defensively, they're good enough to slow Boise State down a bit, and offensively, they're good enough to go ahead and pile on. Again, we already saw it once this year. 29-24 is a 5-point game. We missed the number by half a point there. And again, UNLV threw an interception late in that game that kind of cost them there. If UNLV protects the football a little bit better here this time around, they might have actually won that game. So I think it's gonna be another close one. I don't think the style of the game will change too much. I think UNLV should be able to keep this game relatively close here. I'd rather take UNLV at the plus 4.5 line than I would Boise State on the minus 4.5 point line. The fact they played already once this year, UNLV kind of knows what to expect. Tech. Now, you could say the same for Boise State, but I think Boise State has some more weaknesses, specifically on the defensive side of the football, that UNLV can go ahead and attack. And to add insult to injury for us, well, I guess for the total, for the bet, I don't know what I'm saying here, a little ramble there. We do have some sharp action here on UNLV. Just 31% of all tickets are on UNLV spread, yet 64% of the money is on UNLV. So it seems like the sharp bettors, the professional bettors, they seem to be backing UNLV despite the public being very heavily on Boise State in this game. So I'll take UNLV here plus 4.5. All right, guys, in our second Friday game, our second conference championship game on Friday, we have the AAC championship game. We have Tulane versus Army, 8 p.m. kickoff. I'm going with the under here, 45.5 in this one. I just don't like picking a side here. I just really couldn't decide what I wanted here. If I wanted Army, Tulane, I kept going back and forth between the two. I think the under, honestly, is the best play, and there is, again, like the last prop, some sharp action. 31% of all tickets are on the under, yet 46% of the money is on the under. So you do see the public, it seems to be on the over. However, the sharp money seems to be on the under here. And really, I think these two teams are both run-heavy teams. They're not really a quick, in terms of seconds per play. This is not a very fast-paced teams. You know, they kind of run the ball, they manage the clock, they play kind of more methodical. Neither of these passing offenses are all that impressive. Army 134th in passing, but they're the best rushing team in college football. And on the flip side, you get a similar story. Tulane 81st in passing yards, 12th in rushing yards. But both things to keep in mind, both of them have bad passing offenses, but both have good passing defenses. Army 32nd pass defense in the nation. Tulane 21st pass defense in the nation. So two good pass defense against two bad passing offenses. These games are going to be on the ground. The battles are going to be one in the trenches. I don't see this being a high-scoring, high-flying affair. I think you're going to see a lot of running between the two sides here. I like the under a lot in this spot. And in case you don't believe me, this little outlier insight here, the under has hit in 15 of Tulane's last 21 games as a favorite, 71% in the last 21 games as a favorite. So pretty good data there. I like the under 45.5. Moving on to the Saturday slate, guys, we have the Big 12 championship game, Iowa State versus Arizona State, 12 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. We're going with Arizona State here on the money line, minus 115 odds. Now, neither of these teams are necessarily in bad form. I wouldn't say Iowa State's in bad form, but I just feel like Arizona State has been on such a great run of late that I have to go ahead and tail them here at home here in this Big 12 championship game. They crushed Oklahoma State. They beat UCF. They beat Kansas State. They beat BYU in a really big way, and they crushed Arizona in their last game of the regular season. And like I said, Iowa State, they're on a pretty good run as well. They beat Cincinnati. They beat Utah. They beat Kansas State, but they had that loss to Kansas. They had that loss to Texas Tech just a few weeks ago. I just feel like Arizona State's in a little bit of a better form now. Iowa State, they're definitely a better defensive team than Arizona State, but Arizona State's not a terrible defensive team. 33rd in scoring, 62nd against the pass, 27th against the run. The key advantage I see here is that Arizona State should be able to run the football with ease on this Iowa State defense. Iowa State, really solid pass defense, but they are 96th against the run. Arizona State, their strength offensively is running the football, 25th in the nation, averaging 195 rushing yards per game. So I do like the matchup there overall. And look at the strength for Iowa State, their passing attack, absolutely, but I do think that Arizona State's pass defense, although it's not great, should be able to at least hold their own in this spot. It's going to be close. The why the line is where it's at. It's why you can get Arizona State on the money line here for minus 115 odds. It's going to be a really tight game, a really close game. They're both 10-win teams. They've a lot of wins versus common opponents. It's really tough. It's a coin flip of a game, but in this coin flip, I'm going to go ahead and ride with Arizona State here. All right, guys, next up, we have the SEC Championship game, one of the best games of the year thus far. We have Georgia at Texas, 4 p.m. kickoff. Sorry, a lot of basketball lately. We're going with the Longhorns here, -3. Now, these two teams did play already once this year, back on October 19th. Georgia won that game at Texas, 30-15. We actually rode Georgia in that game. This time around, though, I'm going to ride with Texas. They get a second shot at home as well. You get a second shot here to take on Georgia. It actually isn't at Longhorn Stadium. I want to clarify that. It's not at Longhorn Stadium. It's actually in the Atlanta Falcons Stadium, excuse me. So actually more of a home game for Georgia, to be totally honest. But I like Texas here. Again, I just don't see Texas losing 2 times in a year to Georgia. And Georgia lately, yeah, they're here and they're in a pretty good spot to make the playoff, but they have not been on a great run. That Georgia Tech game last week, and now Georgia Tech is not a pushover team, but that was kind of a crazy result. You kind of had the feeling Georgia Tech was very close to pulling off the upset. I don't know, they have that Ole Miss loss in their back pocket. I mean, yeah, since the Ole Miss loss, they beat Tennessee, which is a big win. They crushed UMass, but then they just barely survived Georgia Tech. I just don't trust this Georgia team this year. And to be fair, now Texas on the flip side, they haven't really played anybody. Look at the strength of schedule here for Texas this season. tied for 75th. Georgia tied for 40th. Strength of victory so far this year. Georgia tied for 17th. Texas 37th. Not necessarily a weak schedule for Texas, but not a very strong one either. However, again, I think Texas here, they get the rematch. I think they got embarrassed the last time out. This team, top 2 defensively. They're tied for 21st offensively. I just don't like the form that Georgia's in right now. I trust Texas a little bit more than I do the Bulldogs here. That Georgia Tech game brought up some more concerns that I have with this team. This is not the strongest Georgia team they've had in a couple of years, and Texas just feels like a better spot to bet in this game. I'll take the Longhorns -3. This is another one of these games where it's kind of a coin flip. It could go either way, but I just think Georgia, they're coming into this game, they're not in the best of form, whereas Texas, since the Georgia loss, they've been in really good shape. They survived Vanderbilt. It was a tough game, but Vanderbilt's been tough for a lot of teams this year. They crushed Florida. They beat Arkansas. They beat Kentucky. They beat A&M. I just like the Longhorns spot a little bit better coming in this game. Again, since the Georgia game, they've definitely gotten, they've been in better form. Georgia, since that win against Texas, let me refrain here. Georgia, since the win against Texas, you've got a couple weird games. You had the Ole Miss loss. They almost lost to Georgia Tech. I just like the form of Texas coming in this game. You have the revenge factor as well. The fact they already lost once. They definitely have a chip on their shoulder coming into this game. And Georgia this year is a 27% cover rating against the spread. So I like the Texas Longhorns here in this spot -3. Next up, we have the ACC Championship game, Clemson, SMU, 8 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. I'm going with SMU -2.5, and I'm not overthinking it. Kind of the same argument I have with the last pick. I just don't like the form that Clemson's in right now. Clemson coming off of that South Carolina loss to close out the year. I just don't think Clemson, they're a 3-loss team. They didn't really play a tough schedule, and yet they lost some really weird, they lost to Louisville, they lose to South Carolina, they got blown up by Georgia. Clemson is tied for 94th in strength of schedule despite being just 9-3. SMU, not much higher, they're tied for 86th, but they are 11-1 with some really nice wins. And they've also beaten some teams that Clemson didn't. Like, they beat Louisville. Clemson obviously lost to Louisville. Now, SMU didn't play Georgia or South Carolina. You got to wonder what those games would have looked like. But I do think SMU, they are in a little bit of a better run here overall. SMU only a 1-loss team this year. Their 1 loss coming to BYU back on September 6th. They haven't lost in over 2 months, almost 3 months. SMU hasn't lost. They're just in really good form overall. I like them a little bit more in this spot. Clemson, like I said, they're still a decent team. But I think with Clemson, I just don't think a lot of their wins, you could chalk them up as they had easy opponents. And even some of these games like Pitt, they struggled with. They beat them 24-20. Even Florida State, we've seen teams destroy Florida State, and they beat them by 16 points, which is still a decent victory. But the fact that they didn't do more damage on Florida State is kind of concerning to me. I just don't like Clemson in this spot. I think SMU's in much better form. Give me SMU here, -2.5 to win the ACC Championship. In our 6th and final pick here, we have the Big Ten Championship game, 8 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. We have Penn State and Oregon. I'm going Oregon -3 here. And I'm going to be honest, guys, this is a fade James Franklin spot. This is just Penn State. Until they prove me wrong, I'm going to keep betting against them. Now, this is a little bit more juice, -133 on DraftKings for the -3 spot. The actual line, I believe, is 3.5 points. I just don't trust Penn State. They have not been battle tested. The only good win they have, or the good game I should say they have, is Ohio State, and they got beat in that game 20-13 by an Ohio State team that just lost to Michigan in embarrassing fashion. Besides that Ohio State game, look at the rest of their schedule. They haven't really played anybody. Okay, they beat Washington. Washington's not having a great year. USC, not a great team. Illinois, I guess. Like, in USC, they barely survived USC. I just don't see any impressive wins. Look at their schedule this year. Penn State, in terms of strength schedule, tied for 111th in the nation. Strength of victory, Penn State 71st. Oregon is 16th. Oregon tied for 60th. Oregon is just way more battle-tested. They beat Ohio State. They beat Michigan. Again, they haven't had a crazy tough schedule either, but, they beat Boise State. They beat Ohio State. They beat Michigan. They also beat teams like Washington, Oregon State, Michigan. I mean, like I said, not a tough schedule either for Oregon, but tougher for sure than Penn State. And they actually won the games that were tougher on their schedule, specifically the Ohio State game. So James Franklin, he's a great regular season coach. He beats up on those bad teams, but when he plays in games like this, he typically falls short. I just don't see how Drew Allar in this offense is going to match up against this Oregon Ducks defense, which is one of the best defenses in the nation. I just don't see it. And Oregon's offense, yeah, it's not, as great as maybe some people might seem to think they are. They definitely have some weaknesses offensively. They don't really run the ball that well. But I think with Dylan Gabriel in the passing attack, they should be able to get just enough done here to win. It's going to be a low-scoring game. It's going to be a tight game, but I think Oregon, at the end of the day, are the better team. They will go ahead and get the win. They've dominated the Big Ten in their first year there, so I like the Ducks here -3. So, guys, those are all 6 picks for the conference championship slate. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. One more more time, guys, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. We still have a lot of college football to go. We have bowl games. We have the college football playoff, which I'm really excited for. So stick around. There's definitely going to be more college football picks videos to come. We are in the waning weeks of the season, though. We don't have too much time left together here this year, but there's still some more time, some more games, some really exciting games at that. Guys, thank you very much, as always, for watching. Be back next week with some more college football picks. But until then, I hope you're all winners. Enjoy Conference Championship Week. Let's go.